everyone, my name is Jacob. I come from a company called The Ventury. We run your favorite bot accelerator here in Vienna, Elevate. And I have the pleasure to be on stage with three amazing people, the bot heroes. Yeah, let's dive right into it. The way I see it, I want to start with a little bit of questions that we prepared and I think are really interesting. And there's Slido, which is active currently. So please go on Slido. We'll have a dedicated segment later on where we accept questions. And I think it's a really interesting opportunity with three amazing people here on stage. And yeah, let's dive right into it. So the future of communication. I mean, we have seen, I think, what is really interesting shift currently, right? We have personal communication being speeded up quite rapidly with from email going to like instant messaging. We're seeing the same also going on like B2B, but I feel like B2C, like business to customer, is still like lagging behind. So where do you guys still see the opportunity? Where is it like to jump in as a startup or a corporate and like do some opportunities and get some stuff on the road there?
Okay, I'll start first. So first of all, thank you all for being here. What I think is that, let's say, automation is easier to bring forward in closed environments. So we've seen that in the workspace, for example, or in B2B environments, automation is, let's say, going ahead at a faster pace. And this is mostly because in both sides, like in B2B, there's money involved, so you can enforce, let's say, new stuff more fastly. And in the work environment, you can just push, let's say, something from above. Your boss says, like, we're going to use this tool or this process, and that's it. And that's why, I don't know, Slack bots are super successful and useful. Or, for example, there's a lot of B2B tools. But for B2C, it's you, your company versus the world, and you have to create a habit in people that they might not even think about or might not even want. So what I think is that the only way to move forward in this direction is to really focus on narrow use cases. Right. So instead of
specific into something, jobs to be done.
Exactly, like finding a pain that common people have and just go like vertically on that. Yeah. And that's the only way that B2C is going to move forward with bots.
You want to grab up the torch with jobs to be done?
So I think one of the positive things that are happening in communication is that there is a large desire from users to streamline the communication that they have with big companies and between themselves. So the consumer opportunity is to actually solve those user problems because we know that they have them. So it just takes the exploration and the investigation and empathy about your users and what they're actually doing to uncover the problems. And then the technological solutions may not be so easy to solve, but you can at least start to solve them once you've understood the whole user problem.
For me, it's, I mean, if you take a look at like just user in a private space messaging each other, it's really about convenience. If you take a look in the B2B space, like Slack, there are huge improvements because there's money involved. But in the B2C space, I think many companies often overlook that it's really important to have like a close and good customer relationship. And often customer satisfaction, customer happiness is really hard to measure. And by, for example, providing outstanding customer service, you can really improve your customer happiness. And I think that's often overlooked or overseen by companies.
How would you measure customer happiness?
I mean, I
already
said it's hard. I actually don't know. I mean, there are like different ways to measure it. On the one hand, you can try to make some surveys and try to get the Net Promoter Score. On the other hand, what also makes sense is just to monitor social media, how people are talking about your product, your brand, your business.
I mean, you talked about that already, but I want to dive a little bit into like, what do you think is the role of voice in that? Because I think that's some really interesting, because you talked about private conversations, and I think with voice, this is like in a really interesting trade-off. So where do you think does voice fit into this entire like conversational revolution? Yeah, sure.
I think that voice is a magnificent instrument for private spaces. in the house, in the car, where, I don't know, I feel comfortable being naked, I don't know, something like that.
Tell us more.
No, joking. But definitely voice, let's say, nails a lot of use cases where having something in your hands like a phone is just like an additional step to reach your goal. So,
what would you say in that environment is like the killer application?
which environment?
The home environment where you're naked.
Yeah, the home environment is one of maybe the car for me is the killer application.
The car, okay.
Yeah, because there's utility involved. At home right now, what I'm seeing is a little bit of struggle. I mean, Alexa and so on is really cool, but am I doing something more than asking to set up an alarm? So there's definitely a lot to go in the future, and especially in these closed spaces. In the public space, I think that text is going to be.
For you guys, killer applications in voice?
Well, when you're home and you're naked, you can turn up the temperature
Becomes
with
a running
Alexa.
theme, right?
So I think controlling the actual environment around you and how much more objects and devices are connected to everything. So the texture that is the things that we can control are becoming much more nuanced. And so we have the ability to actually control our environment in a really awesome way when we're at home and we've set up a lot of other devices that talk to each other. And I think that also there are going to be social changes that happen that make people more comfortable with interacting with their voice in public. I know that...
Can you give us an example for those social changes? Because I think it's really interesting.
Yeah,
concept.
I think it's not being embarrassed to be on the subway in a public place and use voice search because you don't want to type.
I mean, it depends what you're looking for.
What?
It depends what you're searching for.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah, it certainly depends on what you're searching for, but I think that certain things will become more natural. Just like you see someone walking with earbuds, but you can't quite see them, and you think they're talking into the air, and you're not quite sure if they're talking to you. That confusion is we're a little bit more prepared to see someone like, oh, they must be wearing earbuds because I might not see them, but I don't think it's directed at me. And so I think that's like one indication of social change we've seen in devices, and it will also happen with voice interfaces.
David, for you, killer in voice?
Killer in voice, I mean, definitely like hands-free environments, like at home, for example, if you're doing your dishes, something like that. Following up on like voice interfaces in public, I think that's also like a cultural thing, because there are like people in Southeast Asia or Asia in general who are like way more open to use voice in general in public, as especially we in Europe, we're like way more concerned about privacy and use texting way more than voice. But also what I see where voice is really important is, I mean, like 10 years ago, our only computer was a laptop. Now we own a smartphone, we own a laptop, a smartwatch, maybe Amazon Alexa, but also like smart glasses and stuff like that. And I think voice could really be like some common interface, like common ground where you can interact with all of these devices.
Cool. Guys, just a reminder, I'm seeing like we have 8 messages already on Slido. So if you want to ask the questions, I encourage everyone, like, get into the conversation. A panel is always more fun if there's input coming from you guys. So like, go on Slido, put some questions up there, and we continue here. Bots and AI, right? This is like a love pair, right? Bots and AI. Everyone's bots and AI. So I want to take like a serious stand on this. Like, where do you feel is really the state of AI and bots, like conversational AI? Like, where are we in your opinion? So
I don't know if you were at the Booking.com speech upstairs, but at the end they put a slide with what, a broom on one side,
yeah.
And on the other side of the spectrum, the Roomba.
Yeah.
And then they were like, we are at the broom stage. Definitely, let's say, compared to a couple of years ago, there are tools to at least bootstrap something that looks like it's working. I always get the thrills when somebody says this is artificial intelligence.
Oh yeah, every time.
But I think, I mean, in a little bit of negative way, because as I am a researcher, I used to be a researcher and therefore a nerd on these things, I understand what is the spectrum of possibilities and also why commercial things can't go in the in real artificial intelligence for now. So let's say from a marketing perspective, it looks okay to say this is AI. On the practical level, it's, let's say, apps that use natural language processing at different layers of complexity to just perform tasks. That's
some really clever person said to me once, it's called AI until you can explain how it's done.
Yeah.
And that fits really nicely into that, yeah. So, David, what do you think? Bots and AI, where are we, like the truth?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's really hard to say because, I mean, what we are currently doing right now is a lot of expectation management. Because right now, every company is claiming to do some kind of AI. Like, there are many marketers talking about, like, they have AI in their system, don't even know what AI is. I think we are definitely not at the stage where we really have an artificial intelligence. I mean, we know machine learning is working, deep learning, it's working. So we have machines which can learn, but I wouldn't say that we're at a state where it's really an artificial intelligence. And especially when we're talking together with bots. I mean, one of the problems with bots is that they talk in natural language. And from an historical, from the history, the only beings which can talk are humans, and they're, at least most of them, some kind of smart.
But
and that's what you also expect from like these bots, that they're smart because they can talk.
Do you think humans in general will accept talking to an AI, like the uncanny valley of not perfect?
I mean, definitely. I mean, at some point you will talk to AIs, you will talk to bots, and if they can deliver what you want, you probably prefer talking to an AI because then you don't have to wait 2 weeks for response. You get an immediate response, you save a lot of time, and therefore I think people will be happy to talk to some kind of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, so I think that users will definitely talk to AI. We can already see it happening with Alexa. They're very willing to go out on a limb and speak to it. And we were talking last night about this phenomenon that will likely happen with voice interface or with AI. And if you've ever seen a little kid interact with a screen, they immediately try to touch that screen. And if they try to touch a laptop screen that isn't touch-enabled, they don't understand they don't understand that interface because their entire concept is around touch. And I think something similarly will happen as we start to make our interfaces more intelligent and we're able to speak to them and talk to them, that the entire concept of the way you interact with a machine will revolve around the ability to talk to it, to speak to it. So you can imagine a little kid walking up to a speaker or a TV and just directly try to talk to it. If it's not voice enabled, then it will actually seem off to them. Their entire frame of reference will be around it having an intelligence or it having a voice to speak to them. So I think that will definitely happen.
So I want to dive into a quite recent topic, actually. So it looks like most of the known startups recently have pivoted or focuses towards messaging marketing. Name a couple of random ManyChat, Chatfuel, Octane AI, Automate. There was a lot of traffic in the last couple of weeks around those players. So why is this happening? Why is this pivot or focus towards messaging marketing happening? And where do you see the opportunities? Maybe we start with you and then go on, because Heroes is also really into this.
Yeah, maybe I'll say a couple of words about Heroes.
Sure.
So what we're doing really is bringing influencer marketing on messaging platforms, which means probably you've seen influencers of various degrees of, let's say, famousness on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And what we're doing is creating for them a new channel based on chat, where they can interact with their audiences at scale. So just think
You're fully in there.
Yeah, chatting with your favorite athlete, celebrity, or whatever, YouTuber. The reason why I think that this is, I don't know, it's a pool where everybody's jumping in, is that there is a real use case that brings money to the table. In my opinion, chatbots and, let's say, chat automation in general is going in 2 different directions. On one side, there's customer service tools and focusing more on the enterprise. And then consumer side, everything is really marketing. So I just think that, there are some names that have said we are conversational marketing from the beginning, like Automat. There are others which said we are, I don't know, marketing automation from the beginning, like ManyChat. But these are the use cases where really, I don't know, you can go back and say, okay, this is the return on investment. Because bots can give you numbers that you can't get anywhere else. And marketing is where, I mean, the media budgets of companies is like, I don't know how many times bigger than the innovation budget. So that's where value can be, let's say the value line can be drawn.
You guys concur?
No, I have a different opinion on that. I mean, basically why marketers are so crazy about messengers is because it really works well. It works better than email. And for me personally, I think like there will be the point in time when messengers are the new emails, when no one is looking at messengers anymore because they're getting all the shit they're now getting via email on their messenger. I mean, basically what happened is like back before we had email, the best channel was probably phone. And then they switched to email because it was a new channel and it worked better. And now many marketers switching to messaging channels because they get higher CTRs on messengers because it's a more personal channel. But at some point, I think we will be there where people now say, yeah, nice, it's cool, I have a new message on Messenger, and this company is so cool because it's on Messenger, and I don't have to use email anymore on my smartphone, and it's amazing, but at some point it's like, another message of this company, I'm just gonna block that, it's boring, and I guess it leads at some point to that Messenger becoming a new email, because at least that's what I'm afraid of. And that you then switch the Messenger because this Messenger is already full of just business bullshit.
But where do you switch to, like voice, and then you have like all the voice chattering around you?
Probably just a different messenger where then you have all your friends, and then you have maybe two messengers where one have like for businesses and the other one for like private communication. I mean, that could happen if you overdo this messenger marketing.
If I can answer to that, I think that the difference is that email is an open protocol that doesn't have anyone controlling it, while we're talking with businesses, and platforms are businesses, and they will never allow this. So at some point, they will just cut the sheet with whatever.
So limit the functionality.
Yeah, in some ways, I don't know, if Messenger really blows up, they will just say, okay, these are the rules, and that's it.
I hope that's before it's too late.
Yeah.
You want to add to that discussion?
Yeah, so I think originally when I think about the conversational interface space a lot about in the ways that the early web can be thought about. And so originally when we were designing websites for businesses, a lot of it was what is called brochureware. So like paper brochures that you would typically have in the front of your business that told customers about what you did. Those were the types of websites that were first built. And they were very focused on marketing because that was the type of content that we could easily get into HTML and CSS. Now, and then that quickly moved into much more complexity on the web, and you could build really robust applications. And I think we're probably going to move in a similar way with chatbots. We start with marketing because those are the things that are easy to solve, that we can get our messaging and brand out there, and then we move into much deeper, complex applications that influence our lives and solve problems for us.
So I want to grab Daniel's message here about WhatsApp because it also fits into what I have prepared. So cheers, Daniel. So WhatsApp has recently released like a business account for WhatsApp. I think there's not a lot of it known already from what I got. But how do you think does that affect communication? Like, can we expect WhatsApp to release something like a messaging bot-ish environment? Where do you see that going?
From what we've seen up to now, WhatsApp has always been a little bit scared of doing new things, but Facebook is pushing. I mean, they changed their policy, they changed their sharing data since a while, so eventually they will open more and more. The way I see it is that the interaction that I expect to see in the future is different from the one that we have on Messenger. Like Messenger is more of a app-style interaction in general, and while WhatsApp is a real SMS replacement. And on Messenger, I expect to have widgets and buttons and, I don't know, GIFs, fancy stuff. But WhatsApp is more about like direct communication. And what I see is that this is more closer to what Twitter is doing. Like, they opened for brand accounts for one reason, because that's where the business is, and the same thing that Twitter is doing, like the brand accounts. So that's the competition that I see, like WhatsApp going in customer service more more customer service like communication and Messenger staying
so
for the
pure
apps.
platform and then the app platform.
There would be a mix, but yeah, that's the differentiation that I see.
I mean, the truth is no one really knows because we don't have the information, so we actually don't know if WhatsApp is gonna opening up for bots. In my opinion, I don't see that they're opening up for bots as we know it, like on Messenger or Telegram or any other platform, anytime soon, because as Jan Koum actually said himself, they see themselves as a replacement for SMS, and they see like that they are strong in communication, and it's not automated conversation, it's like people-to-people conversation. And I guess if they're gonna open up, you can basically see that it's some kind of SMS replacement, but on WhatsApp. So basically, I guess you can like do the same stuff you can do on Twilio probably, but you won't have like any fancy stuff like the Messenger has. And what's also really important is that WhatsApp is really huge in emerging markets, which also means like they don't have like this sometimes not high like internet penetration. They sometimes don't even have like 4G or 3G internet, and therefore it doesn't make sense like to push all these features like I don't know carousel stuff like that if the internet is not there in these markets.
Yeah, I think WhatsApp users are also very concerned about privacy, more so than necessarily Facebook users, and so you're not going to see like an ad platform directly connect to WhatsApp because that data will very unlikely to be exposed in quite the same way that is exposed when you're using the Messenger APIs. So I think that culture around WhatsApp should maintain because those are the reasons users are attracted to that particular service.
I mean, I'm also super curious how they're going to solve this end-to-end encryption thing. If they're going to open up their platform, that's also the other thing.
All right, let's take more questions from you guys. Open it up. Top current question, chatbot versus voice. Which one has a brighter future?
I mean, basically, chatbots, you can also talk to chatbots via voice, but I think the question was probably meant to be like text bots or bots on Messenger versus voice.
Probably the medium, yeah.
Probably depends on the use case. So there are definitely like use cases where you don't want to use voice. For example, if you have like a personal assistant, like or like some kind of health assistant, where you really talk to it like in private, we have like private data sending to it. Then it definitely makes more sense to have it as like on a messaging channel where you text to it rather than voice.
I think voice cognitively is a little bit more difficult, especially if we're talking about a voice-only application. So when we're listening to someone speak and we're trying to understand what they're saying, we have to do it in real time. So I think a lot of the tasks that are going to be enabled in voice are going to be things that are very temporal and environmental. And so I think there's a lot of really interesting experiences to explore in those spaces. But as you start to talk about text, I think there's a wider application for text-based interfaces because it's asynchronous. You don't have to be paying attention at the exact same time as the bot you're engaging with or even other people that you're engaging with. So the ability to provide maybe a more encompassing experience for a user is likely to be on text, where voice will be things that are much more temporal and environmental.
To me, so nothing against apes, but we're really apes. And this means that we can only process so much information. And this is why I think that text is winning, because we can process bits and pieces of information more than with voice. And I mean, if we really liked voice so much, we were calling our mom and dads every day, but now we're texting. And
I think this has other reasons too. But
true that. And the other thing that I think is that voice requires an additional processing. I mean, really, every voice application right now is basically transforming the audio waves to text and then doing something. So text is just quicker. And personal experience, sometimes when I want to say something to, I don't know, Google Assistant, it takes me a while to say, okay, what do I want to say? And maybe I'm dumb, but on text, I'm just like, quick.
I mean, what you also have to consider is that if you use text, you always basically have to wear a screen and the input device with you. And I mean, for us at the current state, it's it's completely normal to have a smartphone in our pockets, but no one really knows if like in 10 years or 20 years we're still going to use smartphones, because it's basically a really limiting device where you like limit your whole movement into 2 fingers basically. So there hopefully going to be some like involvement or
Maybe we're
improvement.
typing in the air.
Yeah, but that really looks stupid.
All right, I like the question, the personal one. Why did you personally start working with bots? I think this is a nice one. Like maybe you can enlighten us about your personal story into bots.
Okay, my personal story is kind of weird.
Love it.
I used to be a space engineer, and fun fact, maybe you've heard this week that Russia and the US have announced a collaboration to build a space station around the moon. I don't know if you ever heard about it this week, but that's what I was working on for years. And then I was like, okay, this project is probably going to start in 20, 30 years, and that's exactly when it's going to start. So I decided to go start my own venture, and the first thing that I did was like a travel assistant. And the way this came out to be was standing in the middle of Rome, I'm from Rome, for a week interviewing tourists and asking them, would you like to have a guide touring you around the city? And they were like, I'd like to, but maybe I also like to sleep in the hotel for a couple of hours in the afternoon, so I don't want a guide. And then I gave them my number, and I started being a guide through WhatsApp. And that's how I understood that the asynchronous communication was so powerful. Then that idea was really wrong. But from that, I started working with travel agencies in automating text. And that's how I got into basically text automation.
David, how did you end up here?
For me personally, I actually didn't start working with bots. I actually started working with messengers 2 years ago, because there are 2 things I really hate. One of them is calling, the other thing is email. So I started to take a closer look into messengers. And I'm a big fan of Telegram, and I really had the luck that after like 1 month, I started like take a deeper look into messengers. Telegram released a bot platform, and then I was actually really amazed what they can do with this bot platform. And back then, I didn't really realize that this bot thing is a real thing. But I built some small integration just to automate some of my workflows. And at some point, I really realized like what ecosystem they're building, and then Messenger opened up, and yeah, then we organized the ChatbotConf, and you know the rest of the story.
Right.
I actually started in my house. My co-founder is also my partner in business and in life. So we started our journey together, and we had installed a bunch of the latest home automation, smart light bulbs and smart locks. And we really like sci-fi books and TV shows. So we really wanted to have that experience of being able to like walk into a room and say, turn on the lights, or turn on a movie, and have that happen. So we originally had a product called an Ubi, which a Canadian company built, and it was basically a very rudimentary version of the Amazon Echo. And we had been using that and connecting it to our light bulbs, and that's when we actually first were able to experience ourselves the magic that was interacting with our environment via voice with no interface, seemingly no interface whatsoever. So when the Echo came out and the developer skills, the developer SDK came out, we were very interested in just working on it. And so we had been wanting to start a business for a really long time together. So we decided to quit our jobs and dive into building voice apps first in our home, and then started selling our services to other companies.
Awesome. So next question is, what's the best use case in your opinion? I think we'll spice up the question. Like,
No, that's easy. No hot dog bot, next.
what?
Not hot dog bot, next.
Okay.
It's basically a bot where you can send a picture and it tells you if it's a hot dog or it's a no hot dog.
Right, I heard about that. Do you have any other like crazy ideas where you think like this should, if I start over, like this should have a bot?
I'm creating a bot for my personal use.
I thought for the ISS.
No?
Okay.
No, that's not, could be done, more like voice stuff, but just imagine, I mean, the version of, sorry, I didn't understand that, on the ISS is probably a giant station collapsing on the Earth.
Ooh, yeah.
So you don't want that. No, but I'm building a bot for myself. It's kind of like a CEO bot that I will probably give out at some point. And it allows me to keep in touch with my business contacts. And basically, it reminds me like, hey, you didn't speak with this guy for a while. Like, get in touch, this is the info. And I'm trying also to put that into my personal life. Like, hey, you didn't talk with this friend in a while. Talk with him.
You should catch up with him, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the best bot use case, the best use case in general is one where you can draw value, so efficiency. In this case, it's like something that I tried downloading a lot of apps that would do that. Most are dead, but that's something that a notification can just do very quickly.
Any crazy out of your head ideas you want to dive in with? Like, this would be awesome if there would be a chatbot for it?
Oh, I mean, there's so many things to imagine, especially from like sci-fi. But I really think it's about where you can start to automate communication and still provide really amazing experiences for users. As we start to communicate with more and more companies and have more devices, having those personal experiences, and even though it's programmed and maybe not quite intelligent, but it's still responding directly to us and our personal details. So I think that having like a CEO bot is great. I would love to have a bot that did some of that work for me. I would certainly sign up for that. But just allowing companies, no matter what your service is, to automate that very personal communication is really where I think the use cases lie.
The question, like the last one about Google API, Facebook with AI, or a custom solution for integrating with user input. Like, do you have any preferences? Like, I heard already that like API is like really good for bootstrapping. Like, but what's your stand on it? Like, don't want to start like a flame war, but so where do you attend it?
I don't want to say too much because there are people working in these companies in the audience, but personally, I like them at different degrees. I think the most useful ones would be API.ai or Lex from Amazon. They have limitations, and I can tell you why, because I actually did a matrix with these limitations last week.
Where do we find it on your channels?
Yeah, no, it's on me. Yeah, I
okay.
can share it. API.ai is great for starting with a small amount of data, exactly bootstrapping. It misses something on the API side, which is funny. For example, what if I want to... So there's a view inside API.ai where you can do like online training, which means the system tries to match some user query, like what's your favorite food, and they tell you like intent favorite food. And when they are uncertain about it, then you can go in this view and then just say, okay, the system was right, the system was wrong, and then it learns. And if you could do that through an API, that was what I was looking for, and they don't have it. Lex has this kind of thing because the API is much more full potential, but they have one thing that to me is really a no go.
And that is?
And which is when the system doesn't understand your question, it still gives you the most probable answer, and it doesn't tell you what's the confidence, which means it will never tell you this is wrong. It will just give you a wrong answer. And this is, for voice, I understand it, but then I don't know what is the degree of, let's say, confidence that I have over there. So I would suggest everybody to use Rasa.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
Which is
to Alex, yeah.
Rasa, hi Alex if you're here. It's an open source tool that it's on GitHub, and it's basically a replacement for these without giving out your data to the main companies. Check it out, Rasa.
What's your stand on that?
I think it definitely depends on the use case. Should explore all and any of them and test them and see what works best, as well as concerns about the specific privacy that you may have for your users and what their expectations are. Certainly move to open source or something that you can completely control the data, if that's the case, and figure out the ones that are working best for you in real life.
I don't really have a strong point on that. I mean, I definitely would not go for the custom solution, especially as a developer, because
You would not go for it?
Not, because it's really, 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 really likely that you underestimate the work.
Okay. I think we have like time for one more question. And I would like to take the metric question. Like, what is the one metric? Like, if you can only choose one metric for your bot, what should you really look at? Like what should you concentrate on?
I think it's pretty easy. I mean, it's basically retention, because retention is basically in every product. It doesn't need just for bots. I mean, you want to come people back to use your product. I mean, if it's not a rare case that you have basically a one-time product, then you want to come people back to use the service. That's why you always have to have an eye on retention. And this doesn't only belong to bots, it basically belongs to every product builder out there. If you want to build a product, you need people who use it again and again and again.
I agree.
You agree?
Yep.
You
Yeah,
concur?
I think the opposite to that, attrition, is the other side, where
Ooh, okay.
when users fall off, and I think that's like the same side, a different side of the same coin, which is like where users fall off, where the mistakes happen, where the errors happen, because solving for those errors is what ends up creating the retention. So yeah.
I think we'll take one quickie, because I like this. What are your favorite books, sites, or people to follow for conversational design? Where can I learn about patterns and best practice?
That's easy. There's
Easy.
one book.
Yeah?
Amir Shavat, Conversational Design.
Obviously, that is the Bible, yeah, but beside that, you have any like insights?
I think that if you're a developer, there are no books. There's the interweb.
Just doing and learning
Yeah,
from best practices.
Stack Overflow is your Bible.
Oh yeah, always is. Yeah.
And if you want to do natural language processing or AI, let's call it AI, deep learning, whatever, there's a large amount of courses that are free that you can use. Check the courses by Joshua Benjo, for example, Coursera. I don't know where they are, but I mean, you can find it out. There's one which is called deep learning, for example, if you want to go a little bit deep into
deep learning.
Deep learning into advanced machine learning, the latest stuff. That's interesting. Problem is, you will not be able to apply that to bots because you will not have data. But it's a fun story.
So general recommendation, Amir Shavat, chatbot.
Yeah, for conversational design, that thing. If you want to have books in general about bots, I don't know if they exist. Yeah.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot to be learned from predecessors to chatbots, which is interactive voice response, or IVR, which are the bots that you actually talk to on the telephone. So those have been around since like the 1980s, and there's a lot of user experience design and thoughts about best practices that have come out of that industry. So there's a book called It's Better to Be a Good Machine Than a Bad Human, and that's a really great book that talks a lot about user experience and user situations. There's a few other books from that era that talk about best practices for voice design, which I think are very informative and can inform what you're doing. If you want to get started, my first recommendation is join a community and find people that are also working on what you're working on, and especially people who have very different opinions from you. So I know Vienna has like an amazing chatbot community. In Austin, we have a good chatbot community as well. And we actually, the best times that I have, and I feel the best about our industry, is when I go and talk to the community. And like events like this are great too, because a lot of us are getting new ideas, but then we're also affirming the ideas that we each individually have too.
Cool. So thank you very much for this really awesome panel. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much, guys, for like sending in really good and really interesting question. I hope you enjoyed it too. And with that, I would hand off back to Maggie. Where are you? You're coming on stage? You're here.
I don't have a microphone yet. Oh, there, it's working. Amazing. Oh. That applause is for them. Yay! Awesome panel. Good way to go, guys. Okay, we're coming to the end of this dear thing, so I'd like to ask you to vacate the premises, please. We are coming to the end of an amazing day. I'm sure most of you have hopefully seen both sides of this coin, both the masterclass and here. So a big thank you to all the volunteers and the whole team at Oratio for putting this all together and making such a fantastic two-day experience this time for all the chatbot developers and chatbot enthusiasts who have come to Vienna for the ChatbotConf 2017. So a big round of applause, please, for our Oratio team. Way to go, guys. So before we depart, everybody, I'd just like to remind you and invite you to go back over where the food was earlier. There will be a little chance to network, drinks and things like that. Also, feel free to take photos if you've taken photos of the conference and you like to share them over social media. If you do so on Instagram or Twitter, make sure to hashtag it with TagItBot. Then they'll print out a picture for you as well, which you can pick up at the stand over there. You can also just send it to the bot itself. Yeah. And in the meantime, a big thank you also to our fabulous speakers. A big round of applause for the speakers, please. And I'd like to ask Bernie and David to come back on stage just for a final goodbye. One more time for the gentlemen, please.
All right, good. So this was ChatbotConf 2017, to keep it short. It was a joint effort. As you've seen, it was not only the two of us, it wasn't only Team Oratio involved, but also with the support from the local community, as well as people who took off some free time to actually help us getting this event, or making this event possible as it is. So we would like to thank you specifically the speakers who came in actually from all over the world to share, again, knowledge and experience about what they are doing and what they are creating like on a daily basis. But we would also like to thank you as attendees of ChatbotConf actually in putting trust into us, pulling off this event, and therefore for actually saying thank you to the team as well, and like taking the final pictures here. I would also ask to get the whole team now on the stage, like Team Oratio, like all the volunteers and the speakers. I know some of the speakers already had to leave, unfortunately, but those who are still here, I would like to get you on stage as well for a final photo. And after the photo, I'm going to share a few more words about the next points. We're later on having beers outside, and there's an after party as well happening, like a hangout. A hangout, yeah. All right.
So again, please give it up for all these people who made this event happen.
Yeah. Come over here, come over here. All right.
Okay, everybody, 1, 2, 3, chatbots.
Yeah.
1, 2,
Maggie,
3.
John as well, thanks very much for moderating. All right. Good, so let's, okay, on 3, right? So 1, 2, right? 3.
Chatbots!
All right, thanks very much. Okay. Good. So, again, thanks very much, everyone, for coming, for making this event happening. And we are now inviting you to join us outside at the expo area with some beers that we prepared. And later on at 8:30, we're meeting at Schwarzberg. It's a bar close by for having some chilled drinks. We're going to send out some more infos using the conference bot, and we are seeing you later then. Thanks very much.